Hello, my name is Russell Myers. Welcome to Issues Unite. Now, uh, pardon me, all right, many Americans are saying that the response to the global pandemic is the failure of President Trump and our government in general. While this is absolutely true, there is a much deeper truth. The pandemic response failure is, in the U.S. is a failure of capitalism. All right, it is sickly amusing how those who claim to be against big government, against government intervention, are the ones most guilty of saying that the government should be bailing them out. Those who want business reopen want to do so. Why? Profit, money. They claim lives are being impacted by the shutdown. Why? Because people cannot afford food, rent, medicine, etc. That's not the shutdown causing problems. That is capitalism causing those problems. Farmers destroyed crops, millions of pounds of crops, because of capitalism. Animal agriculture businesses killed and buried millions of pigs and chickens because of capitalism. Even while food banks had the longest lines ever seen in U.S. history, and millions of families have reported food insecurity, more than any time in our history. Not because the food did not or does not exist, because they do not have the money to buy the food, or housing, or medicine. The homes are there, the food is there, the medicine is there. These capitalists are fully willing to place millions of human lives at risk. For what? Money. Even as we are being told there is some kind of recovery occurring, the number of people at risk continues to grow as more and more workers are laid off. Almost without exception, those who claim the pandemic has caused the collapse of the economy still believe that the U.S. economy was doing fine in 2019 or doing better in 2016. The fact is, they have paid no attention beyond their own immediate conditions and what corporate media has told them to believe. They still think the economy would be humming along if not for this global illness. Many still think that there will be a significant recovery in the near future. They still believe that lifting restrictions will accelerate a return to normal. These people are oblivious to things that have been happening around them for many years. Occupy Wall Street in 2011. The entire 2008 crash. The fight for universal health care since, at least, most notably since 2008, and for some of us much longer, decades longer. The fight for 15, which began in 2016. Wages which have remained stagnant or declined since 2008. Wages never recovered from the 2008 crash. Auto manufacturers laying off tens of thousands in this country in 2017 because vehicle sales have been declining since 2015 or earlier. Vehicle sales never recovered to pre-2008 levels. Student loan defaults have been at record levels since 2015. Rent prices have been increasing ever since 2009 to historic highs. Residential home sales have never recovered since 2009. Over 9,600 retail outlet closures and over 200 trucking companies went out of business in 2019 alone. That is before the pandemic. The fact that it was highly public in 2019 that over half of Americans could not afford a $400 emergency without going further into debt. The debt to GDP ratio has been over 100% every year since 2014. Estimated consumer debt in 2019 was estimated to be over $14 trillion. Corporate debt stood at $17 trillion. Combined, they equal $31 trillion on top of the, then $26 trillion national debt, making total U.S. debt $57 trillion at the end of 2019. And this is for a country with a GDP of $21 trillion. So almost 3 times our debt as a nation is almost 3 times what we produce. So the U.S. accounts for only 5% of the world's population, and yet we account for over 34% of global debt. The Federal Reserve began the bailout of the repo market in September of 2019. There was no pandemic going on. These are not the signs of a healthy economy by any stretch of the imagination. And then, in early 2020, corporations were already lining up to declare bankruptcy in even greater numbers than 2019. So that was in January and February. Before the pandemic, there was a long list of corporations lining up to declare bankruptcy. And even more than that, planning mass closures of outlets. When we look at the slow response of our government to the pandemic compared to all other industrialized countries, the picture is clear that capitalism is to blame. When our government did respond, they did so not as other countries did by subsidizing wages of workers. They subsidized corporations laying off workers. Those workers lost not only wages, but employer-subsidized health insurance. We stand at over 30 million unemployed, and adding another 800 to 900,000 people with new unemployment claims per week. The failure of Regal Cinema may cost as many as 45,000 jobs, not all of those in the U.S., but a large percentage. Disney has announced over 28,000 layoffs, over 15,000 of which are in Florida. Amtrak plans layoffs of 2,400 workers. Airlines and hotels are laying off hundreds of thousands more than have been laid off so far this year. United Airlines announced layoffs of 1,900 workers from a single airport in Pennsylvania. That's one airport. 1,900 workers being laid off. At least 60% of businesses that have closed this year are now permanent, according to Yelp. Every single bank you can name is laying off workers. Through all of this, the stock market has kept going and recently even increasing. The specific entities listed in the top 500 have changed, though the names don't make any actual difference. Over 200 people globally have climbed to billionaire status in 2020. The top 50 wealthiest Americans now have more wealth than the bottom 165 million Americans, a full 50% of the U.S. population. No, it is not the pandemic which places people at risk or causes suffering for those who are not ill. The pandemic will not throw you out of your home, repossess your vehicle, cause you to be malnourished, or leave you without insulin and heart medication. The pandemic will not force you to choose between low wages or crushing debt for decades to pay for a higher education. The pandemic will not call you a failure and impact your self-esteem because you lack money. All of these problems are caused by capitalism. All of these problems existed as very real dangers for millions of Americans for many years before the pandemic. All the pandemic has done is make these threats a reality for a vast and growing percentage of the American population. A system that fails the majority of the people living under that system is a failure by design. Any system which fails the majority of people living under that system should be abolished. But the only way our system is going to change is if enough people in this country suffer enough to demand different. To demand different, the change has to come first and foremost from and within ourselves. If we do not demand different, it is we who fail ourselves and each other. We fail ourselves, we fail each other, we fail our children, we fail our grandchildren, we fail everyone. All right, that's going to be it for this. Please share this video, discuss these subjects openly. If you can, please donate $1 a month to help expand the channel, and I will see you next time.